And I guess with that, we shall also move on. Earlier this morning, we had set the stage for the workplace of 2025 and beyond will look like. Basically, we were telling you how it would look like, and it is evident that the future is already upon us. From all the sessions we've had so far, and from whatever you would have heard, pretty much it looks like that. Which is why now I would like to invite a lady, a woman, who is the founder of Infinity OD. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together. I'm talking about Dr. Shalini Lal, and she shall be coming over here to talk on Thriving in Workplace 2025 and beyond. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Shalini Lal works to help organizations become future ready or have the capabilities they need to be able to make sense of and respond to a very fast changing external environment. This needs a different set of leadership skills and cultural capabilities, and she's also passionate about helping organizations develop these. Ladies and gentlemen, I give to you Dr. Shalini Lal. Thank you.
Thank you.
You could take the mic, you could take the podium.
So thank you very much, and this session is a little bit change of pace. So I'm speaking today here in the author section. As some of you might know, I've been an organizational development consultant, writer, thinker for many years now, about 25 or so. But today I'm speaking in the author section. The book I'm referring to is called The Secret Life of Organizations. And it's to help professionals navigate and understand organizational life. Many of the ideas I'll speak about today are part of a chapter called A Brave New World within the book. But after the book has come out, we've developed our ideas a little bit more, so there will be a few new ideas for those of you who are already familiar with the book. So with that, could you have the deck on? Okay, while they're getting the deck on, let me just start. So about 26 years ago, when I was still a student at IIM Ahmedabad, I was enrolled in a program called LEM, or Laboratory in Entrepreneurial Motivation. Now, this was the first time that IIM Ahmedabad had offered any program in entrepreneurship. And our class was led by someone who was a very successful entrepreneur himself, also an alumni, Mr. Sunil Handa. And it was a course that all mainstream students stayed away from. So there were about 30-ish oddballs who had enrolled in this program, but none of the really competitive students or who were more generally considered very serious students had enrolled in this program. And I was actually very curious why. So one of these evenings, I was having coffee with a friend from college, and she says to me, I don't think programs like LEM should be offered by IIM. And all of us really loved the program, so I was really interested and puzzled in understanding why. So this is what she said. She said, I think programs like LEM are actually dangerous. They give students the illusion that anyone can become an entrepreneur, and most people won't be successful. So programs like LEM will land up ruining the careers of many, many people. So, of course, it was a really interesting perspective to hear, but it also helped me understand why there were so few students within the mainstream who had enrolled for a program on entrepreneurial motivation. To see how far we've come, 25 years later, you will struggle to find any business school that doesn't offer a program in entrepreneurship. And it's not just a course in entrepreneurship. Most business schools, most engineering schools, and even liberal arts colleges today don't just offer a course in entrepreneurship, but usually a series of courses. And most of them also have incubation centers for young entrepreneurs to understand what it takes to build a business from a concept. So that's really how far we've come in our journey of entrepreneurship. Now, what has this meant for organizations in general? So, as someone who's been working, writing, and studying about organizations for a very, very long time, this has meant that the playing ground of competition has fundamentally changed. Earlier, if you were an established organization, and particularly if you were a large established organization, say a Levers or a P&G, you competed with each other. Coke and Pepsi competed with each other. The big hotels competed with each other. And therefore, you competed with other organizations which inherently thought like you, worked like you, and sometimes borrowed talent from you. So, in a sense, if you thought of a large established organization as, say, an elephant, then elephants competed with other elephants. We've got the slide back on, so that's the name of my book. And this is the program, Laboratory in Entrepreneurial Motivation. The photographs from how the program is now being carried on in IIT Kharagpur. Interestingly, this program itself has developed over 250 entrepreneurs in the time it's been running. So as I was saying, in the past, if you were a large established organization, you knew the rules of competition. And they were not that different. And they were not that different because the other organizations you were competed with were designed like you, they were structured like you, they often had the same sort of talent, often you hired from each other as well. So you were able to predict what your competitors' actions might be. Now, with the rise of entrepreneurship and the democratization of technology, allowing us to come up with solutions to existing problems in whole new formats, that's changed completely. So today, if you're an established organization, yes, you're still competing with other elephants, but you could be competing with a tiger, a wild horse, or even an eagle. You don't know. In fact, some of the biggest disruptions in recent years have not come from organizations which are similar to you, but they've come from something unexpected. A new organization which uses technology to come up with a solution to an existing problem in a whole other arrangement from in the past. So what has this meant for the organizations that we work in? Well, some of it is really obvious. You've heard about it all through the morning, that organizations of tomorrow are going to consciously need to design themselves to be far more agile and innovative than any time in the past. And we are seeing this. If we just take a look at how organizations are impacted by the different eras that they were, designed in or at their peak in. Here's a very interesting slide of how General Motors in 1979 had a staggering 800,000 employees to create $11 billion. Not so long back, Google in 2012 worked with 58,000 employees. And organizations like Netflix, which are an example of what agile and innovative organizations of the future might look like, are 5,400 employees. So the whole design and structure and essential organizing principles for organizations of tomorrow are completely different from any time in the past. Those of you who've ever been interested in organizational history, the legacy organizations are organizations which were set up, say, pre-1980s, were largely created for managing scale efficiently. And that was the central organizing principle behind them. But that's completely changed because managing scale efficiently is now one part of the game, but the other part of the game is now managing tomorrow. And to manage tomorrow, you need to be innovative and agile at a scale that we have never seen in the past. So what does this mean for people like you and me who work in organizations or work with organizations? And one of the questions we've tried to look at is, what will it take for us to thrive in Workplace 2025 and really make the most of the new opportunities that technology, changing business models, changing people trends are going to open up for us? So it turns out that there are two aspects to this question. One is, of course, the learning of new skills and competencies. And you heard some of that in the earlier morning discussion as well. You know, the learning agility becoming so important, people being reskilled and learning to do things which are different from anything that they've experienced in the past. But if we look at the fundamental question that what is it that allows us to do that? Because obviously we know that when times are difficult and times are changing, everybody does not thrive. There are people who thrive when times are changing, and there are people who do not thrive. Some might even, freeze when there is a lot of change and a lot of uncertainty in the environment. So here's what the research says. The research says that the foundational attitudes that allow you to thrive when you're faced with times of great uncertainty, transition, and sometimes a little bit of fear, are foundational hope, optimism, and resilience. Now, this is fairly interesting, but should resonate when you hear that, because I'm sure even if the context is new, the fourth industrial revolution is obviously new for all of us, but all of us have been through some kind of change, adversity, transitions in our own lives, or at least we've seen others go through that. And if you just think about who are the people who, in your experience, have thrived when faced with enormous amounts of uncertainty and enormous amounts of transition, you'll find that they share some of these basic qualities. Why do you think this is so important? So to answer this question, actually, there are answers within a field of positive psychology, and interestingly enough, fields like Buddhism, which give you some insight into how the mental state of hope, optimism, and resilience allows human beings to thrive in situations where there are huge uncertainties and transitions. So it turns out the mechanism by which this works is that when we are in a mental state of hope, optimism, our ability to see the world expands. And we are able to see opportunities far more broadly than we are able to see when, we are not feeling terribly optimistic, or we are feeling fearful, or, for whatever reason, upset, depressed, all of that. So there's something about that mental state that opens up our visibility. And we're able to see and understand the world far better than if we are not in that mental state. And it doesn't end there. Not only are we able to see opportunities that we wouldn't if we were not in that mental state, we're able to take action on them. So these are mental states that allow us to see possibilities and act on those possibilities. And of course, being able to bounce back from adversity, sort of pull up your socks, come back to fight another day, resilience is absolutely central to managing in any time of uncertainty, change, or even adversity. So these are some of the fundamental attitudes that will be really helpful for all of us to keep in mind as we move to a future which becomes, increasingly full of change, transitions. As on a personal note, when I was making this deck, my husband saw this, and one of the things he said was that, okay, this is an area I need to work on myself. So see, there's always, a difference between knowing something intellectually and knowing that, you have to do that yourself. So certainly optimism is one which is in my personal to-do list to work on. What about the thing we spoke about before? Being able to understand change and to be able to creatively respond to that. So wondered how pilots land their aircrafts in times of low visibility? Mr. Bakshi has probably left, or he would, I'm sure, be an expert in this. So when faced with very foggy situations, because a pilot cannot see the runway as clearly as he or she could in clear visibility, they need additional information. They need additional sources of information. And those additional sources of information which help them land the plane are sensors placed on aircrafts and on the runway. So the sensors on the aircraft and the sensors on the runway talk to each other and give the pilot the additional information that the pilot needs to be able to make a good landing decision. Now, this is something like what the next few decades mean for all of us. With so much changing in the world, none of us have an absolute clear line of visibility into the future. And nobody does. It's not just, that we don't have complete information. The reality is nobody does. Even people who are absolutely in the middle of a lot of this transition have different views on where the future is headed. So having good mechanisms for information becomes really critical to developing an understanding for the future. And then, lastly, the ability to generate a creative response to a lot of the information that we get. Now, the reality is that for many of us, skills like complex problem solving or creative solutioning are not necessarily ones that we are familiar with. We haven't grown up with them. And yet, this is one of the most helpful skills for all of us to thrive in Workplace 2025. How do we do that? Well, there are already many tools out there. Design thinking is very prominent in its ability to generate creative new solutions to changing realities. And it's very helpful for all of us to at least understand some of these principles. There are many other methodologies which originate in one area but have application for managing through uncertainty and change. So let me end on one final note. Legend goes that Archimedes, when he discovered the Archimedes principle, you must have heard, had a flash of insight. And he was so excited by his discovery that he got out of the bathtub and ran into the streets naked. Now, what happens is that when you have a creative insight, it is a rush of dopamine in your brain. It is a natural high. So I'd like to wish all of you many, many eureka moments and moments of joy as you thrive in Workplace 2025. With that, thank you very much.